I was driving from LA all the way back to the East Coast. I had taken the road trip to see a bunch of friends for a wedding and ended up staying for over a week. Because I stayed a little bit longer, I only had 4 days to get back home before my next shift at work, so I was really pushing it with how long I was driving. It was 1 a.m., and my eyes were killing me. It felt like my eyelids weighed 100 pounds. The only caffeine I had was a hot coffee from a gas station 3 hours back, so not very hot anymore. And I was in the middle of nowhere. It felt like a dead highway, nothing on either side of it, and barely any cars or trucks around. Just the occasional car speeding past me, only to disappear down the road 30 seconds later. As I tried to keep my eyes open, I noticed again headlights coming up behind me. They weren't very bright, so it must have been a pretty old car, without those crazy bright LEDs everyone has nowadays. The car was also going a lot slower than most that passed by. This one took forever to catch up to me. After tailing behind for a minute, it merged into the other lane and started to pass. I kept my eyes on the road, just making sure I stayed in my lane to let them through. But after a while of them not actually passing, I looked to my left to see what they were doing. The car was matching my speed right beside me. Some old, dusty, dark red car, and their window was down. From what I could see, there was just one man in the car, driving obviously, but he was also staring at me. I had my window up still, so I don't know if he actually could see me, with it being dark and with the reflections and all, but he was looking at my window as if he could. The man didn't try to hide it either. His light was on inside his car, so I could see him clear as day. He looked red-eyed and kind of drunk, just from his expressions and movements. But he remained at the same speed and just stared at me. It really freaked me out. I tried slowing down, but he slowed down too. I slowed down even more, and again he matched my speed. So then I slowed down an absurd amount, like down to 25 miles per hour on the highway, and finally he didn't copy me and just held his pace and kept driving. He disappeared down the road a minute later. I didn't know what the hell to think of that. Maybe he was a creep, maybe drunk, or honestly maybe both. Only a couple minutes after whatever that was happened, I was back to struggling to stay awake. I knew I needed some caffeine, and possibly even some rest for a minute. 15 minutes down the road, I pulled off the highway and into a really small rest stop. It looked like just some bathrooms and a coffee machine. No other cars were there. I parked and got out, walking up to the machine and getting a coffee, hoping it'd be enough. By the time I got it and headed back to my car, another car was pulling in. I instantly saw it was the same old red car from the highway earlier. How the hell was he pulling up behind me again? I never passed him, at least not knowingly, and there was nowhere else to pull off. He would have had to pull into the grass off the highway pretty far out and discreetly wait for me to pass. Otherwise, I'd have seen his car on the side of the road. I got in and looked in my mirrors for a second. He didn't pull in behind me though. He went right up next to me, like he did on the highway. I could just feel his eyes staring at me, too much to ignore. I looked over, and sure enough, that's what he was doing, staring right at me with those red, unsettling eyes. What did this dude want from me? I turned my car on, but the guy started talking. He was yelling something, trying to get my attention through the window. I looked over again, and he reached over and opened his passenger door, motioning for me to get in, with this disturbingly friendly expression on his face. I started to pull away, glancing over one more time and seeing the instant shift into a dead stare. I got back onto the highway, but the guy followed. He kept trying to do the same thing where he'd merge into the other lane and match my speed, but this time I wasn't having it. I was getting a little more aggressive, trying to keep him away from me, but he matched my energy, also getting more aggressive. I could have sworn he even tried to pit maneuver me several times, but I braked just quick enough before he could hit my car. Eventually, I saw one of those emergency vehicle U-turn spots, a pass-through to get onto the other side of the highway that went in the opposite direction. In a rather dangerous and illegal split-second decision, I turned onto it before he could even react and follow me. As I safely got onto the other side of the highway and sped in the other direction, I looked in my mirrors. I felt my heart continue racing for a moment. For a second, his brake lights turned on, but it seemed he gave up, as a moment later, his lights faded out and continued the other way. I was shaking for the next little bit, finding a gas station and just taking a break for an hour to cool off and to keep distance between me and that guy. During that time, I put in a tip for the police, mainly saying I thought he was just a drunk driver driving dangerously, but it didn't come up to much of anything. That was until 4 days later, well after I'd made it back home. Having time to actually breathe, I looked up if the cops ever caught any drunk drivers on that road recently, thinking I might find the dude's mugshot or something. But what I found made this whole thing more disturbing than I ever could have imagined. A day before I left LA, there had been a disappearance of someone on that very road. They found their car in the grass, and the person was just gone. No traces. The only clue they had was from a different driver on the road, who mentioned they saw a rusty red car driving erratically around the car that was later found abandoned in the grass. Reading the whole case almost felt like deja vu. It was exactly like what I experienced that night, only I made it out safely. Had things gone any other way, that night could have taken a really disturbing turn, and I likely would have disappeared too.